Well, Coach Smith, welcome on the show. I'm glad I finally got a chance to have you on. I feel like I don't know, it's one of those things that it's just like we live in the same town, so it doesn't happen on the podcast, but we talk pretty frequently. But super excited to have you on, man.
Yeah, I'm glad to be on. Yeah, I've been kind of doing some trying to work it out for a while. So I'm glad we're able to finally get a time and get on here. I've been still listening to quite a few of the episodes and happy to be on.
I've seen that Stephen Neal jersey for a super long time. Is that something that you got just from Manny and from the years before, or is that something that you got more recently?
No, it's been in here since I got here. So it's kind of just it comes with the head coaching room, part of the decoration. So between that, obviously there's the signed Patriots helmet, and there's a another picture. So I actually had to bring in it's on a different shelf, but my mini Packers helmet because people always just
Gosh,
assume I'm
dude.
a big Patriots fan. So I had to bring in my Wisconsin team a little bit.
I think I blocked that maybe from my memory because I always forget that you're a Packers fan.
Yeah, it's easy in Wisconsin. We only have one pro team per sport, so not a lot of options. You just go with that one team.
There's some good teams though, like the Bucks. I think won. Did the Bucks win NBA championship a couple years ago?
Yep. Yeah, they won, and then yeah, Brewers are usually pretty solid. Usually get bounced by the Dodgers early in the playoffs, but they're usually pretty good. So yeah, we're pretty fortunate to have all of our teams be pretty competitive. And I don't know why they don't have a hockey team because hockey's really big in Wisconsin or a lot of the times in the areas that it's cold like that. So surprised they don't have an NHL team when they have everything else.
Do you have a hockey team?
No, we don't. That's what I'm saying. I'm kind of surprised with that we don't because we have everything else, and hockey's really big in uh, up north. So,
No, I meant like, do you have a favorite hockey team?
do I? No. I went when I lived in Michigan. I did go to a Red Wings game when they were still on their streak of being good, and that was a really fun environment. I actually do have a favorite hockey team. It's the Bakersfield Condors. That's my favorite hockey team. I've
It's a
been
good
more
team.
against that. Yeah, it is.
I almost like the lower divisions better, just because like they're not afraid to just let them scrap and get
Yeah,
after it.
that's a lot of you go there and watch a lot of fights. So it's pretty fun. I enjoy going to Condors games.
It's funny that you said the Red Wings. They actually had this thing where they got a bunch of Russians from overseas to get on their team. Have you heard that story?
No, I remember them like seeing some of their players on their team back when they had that good streak where and having some bunch of Russian names on the team, but I didn't know how long that had been a thing in the NHL or followed enough teams to know if that was a Red Wing specific thing or if that was a um, just NHL in general.
Yeah, they had drafted him during the Cold War, and the way that the draft worked is you could just be like, "All right, I draft this guy, and he's your guy, and no one else can pick him." But they're all in the Soviet Union, so like it's the end of the Soviet. It's like late '80s, early '90s, like as the Soviet Union's kind of declining. And they had like an intermediary basically just show up to Moscow, like trying to find, the guys that they drafted, and to basically just had a briefcase full of money and be like, hey, like come with me right now. I got you a plane ticket, and they dip out.
I know that was my idea not too long ago because my oldest brother majored in Russian and at Oklahoma State, and I wanted to go to the Russian Junior Nationals. I was like, we got too much competition in the U.S. So I'm gonna take my brother to the Russian Junior Nationals. He could be the translator, and then try to recruit guys from Russia to come here.
I mean, that would be a good idea. Is that possible? I mean, you just, you see Ono is at Penn
Yeah,
State now, and then
we're gonna have to do a
Sakamoto,
lot
and
more fundraising if we want to get to that point. I think.
yeah, because you probably wouldn't be able to get in-state tuition.
No, no, that would be it'd be some challenges with that, but they obviously have some really good wrestling there. They had the one heavyweight. Oklahoma State had heavyweight from Russia. Can't think of his name right now. He had a really Gallagher.
So yeah, I know,
Yeah,
I know who you're talking
but
about.
he had a really
Galaga,
good. Yeah, he had a really
Galaga.
good over under, and then put like kind of do inside triple, wrap his toe around and throw guys. But yeah, he was tough.
It's Alan Galaga. Good, yeah, we know.
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about. He ended up All American.
I think he did. I'm pretty sure he did. He was kind of. I know when because he was really good at hitting that throw, and a lot of guys like when he first kind of showed up, he was getting everyone with that. Then guys kind of started scouting him a little bit more, but I know he had some really big wins because of that, big pin ability, but I feel like he did, but I'm not sure.
Well, that's like the hard part now about developing any kind of style is like people can go back and watch almost every single one of your matches.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a lot more ability to go and scout guys and see that. So some of those guys that might have some couple dangerous trick moves, like off the top of my head, I remember the Alton brothers had a really good kind of duck to that headlock, um, and some dangerous moves. Like even Richie, I told him like, hey, what's crazy is that you hit that little rock bottom. Now there's probably gonna be some guys scouting that and having to work on defending that in practice because it went kind of semi-viral. A lot of people saw it.
Yeah, I mean that's like again one of those things there where it's like you do something big like that, everybody sees it. You know, when you were competing, did you do a lot of like scouting and like looking at who you were going to wrestle, like based on what you could have access to?
Yeah, when I was able to, when I was towards the end of my college career, is what like when flow was really kind of flow wrestling was really kind of blowing up, getting bigger. But there was, we recorded our matches, and when I was able to, we would ga- game plan and try to scout and try to go over those things. And I think um, obviously like we are talking, there's a lot more access now than there was there. But even sometimes I had a pretty good memory as far as matches, how they went, and knowing if I wrestled someone once, kind of knowing where the opportunities were and making adjustments the next time.
So a lot of it was just kind of by feel.
Yeah, a lot
You
more of it
just
was by feel, but yeah, I had a pretty good memory in matches of just kind of positions I got caught in or stuck in, and working on things and making adjustments. Some good coaches around me that would work on those things as well, and they were good at letting me kind of create my own style that worked for me as well. So I kind of had made a deal with my college coach that because I was a little more unorthodox, that I could do things my way as long as it worked against the guys that we needed to work against. And if it didn't, then we had to make some adjustments. And there was some funky things and scrambling things that I got to keep doing. And then there was some things like throwing a leg in on a guy's base that I had to stop doing because I didn't have that leverage like an Evan Wick to be able to get away with it. But so I had to break guys down, and then once I broke them down, then I'd put a leg in when they're kind of on their belly, try to act like I'm trying to tight waist tilt, and then when they hip down, throw my leg in and come up on top. So then once I made that adjustment, I had a lot more success on top and um, was definitely better but for the long run. But it was good having that. Like I said, kind of that deal. So that's why deal I make with some of our guys that have some their own unorthodox styles. Like, hey, there's it's a beautiful thing about this sport. There's no one way to be successful. You look at a lot of our top guys in the country, and like Jordan Burroughs, David Taylor, they all wrestle very different, but they're all have had a very high level of success. That's you got to find uh, build around guys' strengths and build their own individual game plan around what they're good at.
Yeah, and they all have really good fundamentals, but it's kind of like what you said. It's like when it comes to different ways that they can score, you kind of just have to let them be them. Though, how often does that happen when you're coaching? And it's kind of like what you said. You got a short, stocky guy trying to throw the legs in the when they're in their base. It's like, all
Mhm.
right, maybe that's not the best time to do that.
Yeah,
How do you kind of
I yell at Richie now, so I feel like it's like full circle that sometimes Richie will try to throw legs in on guys' base, and like Richie, you're not a like he's not even normally ride legs, but sometimes he just really wants to try to do things and try to far side cradle guys, and things that are more moves that are higher success rate with longer guys. But I was, yeah, like I said, it's one of those things where I rode legs all through high school, throwing it on their base, and I got away with uh some things. I got to college, and I think in my mind a lot of times we think that that stuff is just always going to work, and then you wrestle a higher level competition, and um, we get guys like that are really good at kind of swimming out of it and had to make the adjustment. But I was still really like if I because once I have a guy broken down, like if I broke the guy down, I was really good with legs in, good at ripping off, like extending the arm, power half, ripping the shoulder off a little bit there. But yeah, I had to said break the guy down first, make that adjustment, and then once I started doing that, I was pretty dominant on top for the most part.
One thing that I noticed, and this was when you came in as an assistant my senior year, it seems like you have a very good ability in order to kind of connect with an athlete, and I think help them make mental adjustments. When I look at the guys that had success for CCB this year, guys like Richie and Jake Andrews and Ferrari, it seemed like all of them have kind of the same thing in common where they had to get over maybe some mental hurdles. Can you maybe talk about that? And I guess what was the process in terms of building the relationship with the guys and building that trust, and then maybe some of the conversations that you had to kind of get them maybe in the right mindset before competing.
Yeah, and that's a really good question, and even I'd even say with a couple guys that even though they didn't qualify, but made some big gains like Guillermo, and even where Garrett started the year and where he finished. I think he won 9 of his last 11 matches and made some big adjustments at the end. But just like with the styles, the same thing. One of the things I learned earlier on in coaching is that everybody's different. Can't coach everyone the same. There's some guys that you look at like Angelo and Chance are two perfect examples. They're very very different personalities. Angelo could be more like a um, intense. You could be more like intense, aggressive with them, and kind of Chance. You had to like keep him relaxed and calm. Like hey, you got this. You're ready to go. To kind of manage his pre-match anxiety sometimes. But I think for our guys, a lot of it is one um, showing that you care about them as an individual, not just a wrestler. So when you know that and you give them your best, they're going to want to give you their best. And then um, you know, for just focusing on because it's such a tough sport already that if you um, kind of are all over them, kind of kicking them when they're down, when they're losing, that they're gonna a lot of times it's gonna kind of push them away. But it's more just focusing on the solutions, not the problems, and focusing on embracing the process of getting better and judging them more off their attitude and their effort rather than the outcome. So I think when you do those things where it's always solution focused, then it's always about not that you lost, like why did you lose, what you need to get better at, and just I think just having that belief and confidence in them that even though they're not, it might not be there at that time, that you still believe that they can get there. Because I think guys can sense. We've had guys come from transferring from other programs, and sometimes we have to rebuild them mentally because their coach had moved on from them and they felt like their coach didn't believe in them anymore. So then they lost belief in themselves. So you have to sometimes try to build them back up. But and I like I said, that's why I give Jake a lot of credit because I guess I was lucky enough where I had a certain degree. I didn't have the success I wanted to overall, but there was a certain degree of success where if had a 2-19 season, I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could like get myself to think that I can make a turnaround like Jake did. So the mental fortitude and the we call that Bakersfield grit for him to keep working hard, keep believing in himself, and to do what he did. I've 20 years in being in Division I wrestling. I've never seen that big of a turnaround at this level. Um, Richie, it was about he was super aggressive, which is a good thing, but I was trying to add a little more method to his madness, getting him to be a little more solid, not beat himself, because a lot of times people could use his over aggressiveness against him. Um, and then with AJ, it was just him. The biggest thing, when he came in, I told him I already knew that he was a great wrestler, but it was about him not beating himself, learning to control his emotions instead of letting his emotions control him, and focusing on the just controllables in general, not getting caught up in any on what the other guy does, what the fans are saying, what people are like, all blocking out all those exterior things that he can't control. Like I said, everyone was a little bit different, and it takes time to kind of figure out what makes each guy tick and how to best. Sometimes a little bit of trial and error, because sometimes the guys don't know, or they're young and they're still working on their own communication skills. But once they see that, like I said, you care about, you get them to kind of open up and kind of see what how to best coach that individual.
I felt like a lot of this started, last spring and last summer. And I feel like there was a lot of momentum kind of building with the room. Like, I feel like, Richie's always really solid in terms of, he's a lot of different ways that he can score and can put guys in their backs. Guillermo, you already kind of got, came over from Wyoming. You had Nine House already signed, and Jake's really coming on. So you have this team dynamic, it seems like is really kind of growing. And it's a very positive environment when, Ferrari's getting ready to kind of commit. And I think it was maybe August, like kind of right before school started, when he eventually, committed and came over. Were you kind of nervous at all? Because you guys didn't quite have that relationship yet. Was it something like, I'm not sure how he is going to fit with the team, or were there any like concerns like with that?
There's a little bit worried. Obviously, there always is, but I had a good conversation with AJ, with his high school coach, one of his other former coaches, and I knew he was someone who he was trying to he took accountability of some of it, like the mistakes that he had made, and he was trying to be a better person. He just needed to be guided that way. And I think even with him, like, he was very, even during this process, he's been very like appreciative and how we've been able to help. I think a lot of people have seen his personal growth that he's made, and he's very he's very, very grateful for how we've been able to help him. And I think part of it is just his maturity. Sometimes you have to make mistakes and to learn from them, and I think he's had to do that. But I think he's told me just the other day, he came in, we talked, and he was like, we were able to kind of do for him what Oklahoma State and Iowa weren't, how they weren't able to help him the way we were. And I'm just hoping, I just told him that I just want him to stay on that same path of that personal growth and not get away from that, because he's come a long ways. And I told him I'm more proud of that than what he accomplished on the mat. But there was definitely a lot of worry beginning of the year, just people, of seeing. But what I told the guys is like, hey, we have a school like Bakersfield, we don't get a lot of attention, notoriety. And obviously he brought a lot of attention to our program. I was like, the spotlight might be on him initially, but I want people to come and tune in, and that's what that spotlight maybe shining on him, give other guys a chance to shine. I think it did. I think people tuned in to watch AJ, but they're like, man, that 25 pounder is tough. He wrestles hard. Like that 65 pounder is scrappier. Man, that heavyweight's really good. So I think I don't know if they would have gotten the recognition during the year if it wasn't for all those people tuning in initially because of AJ. So I was, I think they liked that. They um, understood that. They understood what how big of an impact he'd be able to make, and he was very uh, like he got along with the guys. He was good. Like there was like he doesn't try to act like he's better. He's very respectful to everyone. He's gonna project the same energy, and now he's even gotten better. Like when he first got here, the same energy you give him, he's gonna give back to you. So, and it was all positive energy. But what we had to prepare him for was obviously there's moments and other fans and other opponents that, all right, they're going to give you negative energy to you. You can't respond with negative energy back. And that was what we had to work on with him. But yeah, overall, there's definitely some worry, but I thought that it was a lot better, that smoother than I thought it would be.
Yeah, and it was something that you can kind of see from, I got to be right there for all the home drills and stuff, but it was one of those things where it was cool to see that transformation of a person. It was always, though, like in big matches or big moments where you're more likely to kind of lose control a little bit. I don't feel like he really did. I mean, there were some moments where I think, he's wrestling, is it Nick Stemmet from Stanford, and they had,
Yeah.
their beef. And I'm like, all right, this is like the first test.
Mhm.
Is he going to be able to keep his cool? And then, it was a close match, but, he basically controlled it the whole time. And it seemed like Sema didn't really want to wrestle in a lot of positions. But at the end, he just rips that middle split and hits the double birds. I'm like, yeah, let's
Mhm.
go, baby. Where did that come from? Was that something that was kind of planned before, or was it something that your guys were like, you know?
So that started as kind of a joke on his recruiting visit. I told him when we were getting the pictures taken, I told him that the only double bird he's allowed to give is the double roadrunner sign. So, and then when he was like taking pictures, he did he was in the splits and he was like doing the double bicep flex. I was like, hey, why don't you do the double roadrunner sign and do that? And then he's like, oh, I like that, coach. I like that. Cause I'm like, yeah, it was not a good moment. Sometimes we have to almost like own our mistakes, and it's all right to like, make fun of ourselves about the mistakes we made. And that's, I think it's really almost like a full circle. We took a negative, one of the most, and turn it into a positive thing where we get so many tags and pictures from like little kids and things of that, them doing the double roadrunner split double bird. Like my parents were at the NCAA championships this year. They went to see the Rocky statue, and there was kids doing the splits double bird pose in front of it. The Cal Poly coach sent me a picture at NCAA's. There was kids posing in front of the NCAA sign as he was walking the building doing the splits, double bird, and there's kids doing it at tournaments. It's funny how it started off as how it's become such a big thing. It started off so organic, and then how it grew into that. But I didn't know that it was gonna. I definitely didn't know it was gonna become what it did. Obviously, I said it was just in when we were doing the pictures and kind of did that, and then there's certain things he'll really AJ will, and that's why it's like the messages we give him try to be messages of uh, positivity or thinking the right way or how I want to respond because he'll attach to things like he really liked that and talked about before the match with Stemmet because obviously there's the online kind of engaging and stuff there and then some Stemmet's a smart guy. He was a Stanford for a reason, so he was knowing that if he can and I think it was a good test for him early on because I was just definitely really worried and I was ready to, if I had to go out there and grab him and something happened. But it was just until you're in that competition setting where there's, um, it's a lot different than the practice room. Then you just don't know how he's gonna. I didn't know how he was gonna be yet because it's still pretty early, but I thought he did a really good job. Actually, the only thing that really got him a little bit frustrated was he wanted Stemmet to open up a little bit because he wanted to score bonus, and he felt like he wasn't engaging enough. So then that's when he was starting to get a little bit frustrated at the end. But then he came off the mat. He's like, "See that, coach? Controlled aggression, just like you said." Because I'm like, it's all right to be aggressive, just it's got to be controlled. I'm like, anytime when you lose control, that's when he has to be controlled aggression. So that's like I said, one of those things that he really um, attached to is that controlled aggression mentality.
I thought it was really special too when we had alumni day, but it was against Michigan State, and they have a pretty tough team, and it was cool, just a Big Ten team coming in, and us getting a big win like that. It felt pretty cool. Like it was one of those things where I hadn't seen that kind of energy in the Ricardo Center in a really long time. And it seemed like the guys were very excited and had a lot of joy. And I think it was something that was very much infectious. Like everybody that was in the room kind of felt it. Um, I don't know. It was super fun, man, and I think that was a cool environment, and it was fun catching up with the alumni after, And I think it was a good moment, especially when you look at this season compared to last season. It seems like there's like a change, that's happening.
Yeah, no, I agree. And even, you know, Garrett said that of all the, obviously he had started off at Purdue, was at Oklahoma, and he said of his career, like that was the most fun he's ever had winning a dual meet that he's ever been a part of. And there was, I think a lot of, he said there was a really good energy off the bench, and even matches we lost, like our fight was great. So like talk about those controllables, your attitude and your effort. And I thought there was even the matches we lost, I was happy with their effort that they gave. But there was some big matches where our guys just fought hard. They were in some wars, and it yeah, was a really really fun dual meet win to have a lot of guys step up and win some big matches, and some huge win for Santino, getting a having a Central Valley guy that's a couple times state champion, um, and big win for Guillermo closing out at the end was in I think like double overtime, triple overtime. It was just yeah another big match where they were just it was just an absolute war. Those are the fun ones to kind of be a part of. So I was really proud of our guys. He had to bring in a Big Ten team on Alumni Day, and to perform, was especially like a lot of these guys have had they've had to work to get to where they're at. It hasn't been an easy journey for them, but it was kind of like I said, after dealing with adversity and struggling last season to keep believing, keep fighting, and then keep building, and then to have a big win like that at home was uh, was great for him.
I mean, it's very much a reflection, I think, of the identity and the spirit of CSUB wrestling is that we're gritty, like you fight, and you're kind of embracing maybe that underdog mentality a little bit and having a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. And I think you can kind of feel that energy really this season. That's what I saw. It's like guys were kind of embracing maybe that a little bit more, and kind of coming to terms with it and going out and fighting. And really, that's all like, at least as like an alum, that's like all like I really hope for is guys just go out and fight and scrap and leave it all out there. And yeah, it was honestly, it was super fun being a fan and kind of following along this year. It was super fun.
Yeah, I think we're starting to get back to our um, identity, and they're starting to kind of understand the expectation a little bit more. Where yeah, it's just you go out and just compete as hard as you like. We're trying to develop guys individual game plans, and then it's about going out there and trying to execute that game plan relentlessly for 7 minutes. And then we will go back to the and make adjustments, and then the next time try to continue to put a better version of them out each time they step on the mat. But their expectation is to still like, I look guys like, you know, look at guys like, Russell, who had success, and like even Albert, and even like guys that even like you guys weren't the biggest, maybe big recruits coming out of high school, but you bought in and competed hard. And when you do that, you can make up a lot. Where said it's like, I think if you look at our roster compared to like our starting lineup that we put up against Michigan State on paper, like if you look at high school results, we probably should have got smashed. I think in general, like we're getting Jake, and Jake probably would have Jake, I assume, would have definitely placed at the state tournament if his senior year didn't hit COVID, but
Yeah.
he was never a state placer. Richie didn't place at the state tournament his senior year. Um, so these are guys that weren't blue chip recruits, and they're getting to the national tournament, beating guys that on paper they're not supposed to be. I think we do a good job of developing guys who come in, buy into who buy into that kind of Bakersfield grit mentality. And this is even from before I got it. That's what Bakersfield is. Stephen Neal only placed one time at the state tournament, took fourth. So people probably would have thought it was unrealistic for him to, if he said I was going to be a multiple time national champion, or world champion, they would have been like, dude, you only took fourth at the state tournament one time. How do you expect to be a Division I NCAA champion? But he didn't put limitations on himself. He came in and he always talked about maximizing the 24 hours better than every other guy in the country to close that gap. And obviously that paid off really well for him. And said even when I talk to guys about, you two-time qualifier, in place you wrestle the guy who won your bracket those 2 years at your senior year, and you major him in a dual meet. So the gap that you made up during your time here by buying in, like if you would have told people that your senior year that you were gonna major that the guy who was two-time state champion at the weight class you wrestled at, people would have probably laughed at you, said that's crazy, that's like unrealistic. But you came in, you worked hard, you didn't put limitations on yourself, and you kicked his butt. That the last time you got a chance to wrestle him. So I think that's testament that we're just trying to keep that culture that we have that's already been established, and keep it going, and just continuing to try to get the right guys that are going to buy into that, and then continue to grow guys. Then at the same time, in this transfer portal era, we have to try to get guys who fit and that can come in and fit some of those gaps that we need to, where other guys maybe still need a little more time to develop and improve, where we can bring in guys that can be ready right now. Then we got to look to do that as well.
So I want to talk about a couple of things. I think for me to the success that I had to some degree, like I think a lot of it came from, obviously I worked hard and I bought in, but I didn't just bought into the belief that I could have success. It was more that I didn't want to let my team down. Like I had a job to do. And I think in that Oregon State duel, I think we were getting down towards the end, and I realized like I need to for sure get this win, because it's going to put us in a spot where we can win the duel. But I felt like there was a point where I think I got a reversal or a takedown, and I could feel Doyle kind of fading a little bit, and I'm like, I have a chance to go get bonus now, and I need to kind of take a personal risk.
You hit an assassin, didn't you, at the end, towards the end?
Oh yeah, and I'll mark this down. Manny Rivera told me over the summer that's a dumb move, and I should stop working it. But Yeah, so shout out to Manny Rivera for down me. I wonder if he did that on purpose, just because he knew I was so stubborn
He
and I was
does
going to
do
choke
that
him
where he
out.
has that kind of sarcastic, like almost like challenge you. And I think that's was like a J Rob type of thing too that he got that from, where he kind of say things just to try to motivate you and to see how you respond to it.
Well, it's like you better get good at that move if you're going to do it. Like you better make sure it works, kind of thing, maybe. But I think when I look at maybe the team dynamic to some extent, it's like going out there and you're not just competing for yourself, but you're competing for what that what it says on the front of your singlet, like representing the Roadrunners and representing your school and representing the team. When we had the feud on the field and Jake's wrestling at the end, where Jake gets that fall, we're gonna beat Cal Poly, and he was working for it. And there was a point where he had, I think early in the match, there was a sequence where they went out of bounds. And he got a big lift and put the guy to his back for a second. I mean, I'm jumping out of my chair just because obviously I care about Jake, but it's like those moments are have so much more gravity because I think it's not just about the individual on the mat. It's more of a team sport that I think that a lot of people are recognizing. Like you get called to more things when you're doing it for other people and you're doing it as a group than just by yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I think some of the dual meets like Michigan State, we had Jake against a good wrestler. I believe he got like a major at the end of the match, and you know Garrett got some huge bonus points with. I mean, the pin he got against Pauly to put us in position there. That was
Yeah.
like president of the university's out of his seat getting pumped up. That really kind of ignited the fans, and that was a great fun moment when Garrett got that pin, and he came through big in like the Chippewa Challenge this last year. We were, at some big ones. We beat Central Michigan on criteria, but some of those guys they don't score those bonus points, and then obviously if it doesn't go to criteria, we lose the duel. And it was just great seeing guys step up and like trying to help the team out more. So it's good. I think we can still get better at pinning guys. I think there's more opportunity. Like even Jake didn't think about it till after, but man, he had that nice, uh, against Paulie. But it's like we looked at it later, I'm like, man, you could have stepped through the middle and bottom like turked him, because that's why the guy rolled through. Because he kind of flared the legs out a little bit, and then that momentum took it through. But yeah, I think it was definitely great seeing a lot of guys step up for the team and getting bonus points this year when we needed it.
And this year, I think at Nationals, I think it was our highest finish since like 2010 or something like that, and our first All American since 2014. This is I think this is year 5 or 6 for you.
Yeah, this was year 4 as a head coach. I believe
Yeah.
1 year was like there was like the interim year,
Yeah.
and then this was like fourth, like full time year. That was a COVID year. There wasn't too much; it was kind of limited what we could do. But yeah, I think I got here in 2018 after Coach Rivera brought me down then, and then assistant a few years and interim head coach, and then head coach. So yeah, so it's COVID made it tough to recruit during that time. We kind of lost some guys during that transition, so then we kind of had to rebuild and establish, because even though I think a lot of things like Coach Rivera and I are tough, because he was a tough, gritty wrestler at Minnesota. But just sometimes sometimes when there's a transition in head coaching, just a little bit different philosophies, mentalities. So just kind of, it's always an adjustment and a change when people initially came for, one guy, and then there's a different guy that takes over the program. So I think we're starting to, like I said, create the culture that we want to have.
So after the season, it's a pretty quick turnaround. It's been kind of crazy. I'm trying to be maybe a little more engaged in wrestling Twitter a little bit, but just with guys entering the portal and NIL and everything that's going on, obviously, AJ's going to UNC. Was that something that after the season you kind of had a feeling was coming? What was your kind of thought process right after the season? Because again, that quick turnaround, and now it's like this chaos excitement that's kind of happening right after nationals.
Yeah, there's been no slowdown from throughout the season, but I mean there was a lot of people obviously asking throughout the year, like, is he gonna stay? I'm like, we're just worrying about this season. We're just worried about getting through the season, and then we'll worry about that after. So once after the season finished, we talked, and I knew they said he's been very grateful for the opportunity that we gave him, and for the how much we were able to help him grow as a person. He said, all things equal, if we were able to, that he would like to stay. So it's not, a lot of times people go in the portal, that's because they're unhappy. And things just, they're not happy, don't feel like it's the right fit where they're at. This was a different situation where we still have a great relationship, and he was happy where he was at. Obviously, we want to, but there was opportunities for him in this NIL era where that was hard to walk away from. That we are in position to match. So, but we stayed in, like, even he still comes in every week. We talk, stay in touch. So with the process and helping him, and yeah, so it's one of those things where I understand, and I'm happy for him. I just want, biggest thing I told him is this: I want him to stay on that path of personal growth and development that he's on, and I don't want him to kind of go backwards from that. And he knows that, and I think he said that's one thing with him. I think he does, and I've had conversations with his family too that I appreciate, because a lot of times when he was so, be a true freshman national champion, like they're just, you get caught up, and sometimes that's where sometimes like a smaller school can be a better thing for guys, where bigger schools, there's a lot going on, a lot of distractions. It's more of a straight up kind of business about, there's a lot of pressure on those coaches, where it's about just, well, whatever you got to do to get wins. So it's about winning. And don't get me wrong, we're 100% trying to win, but we're also trying to prepare these guys and build the values within them that are going to help them succeed after they're done. And I think sometimes that personal development part gets lost, and that's where some of these guys, this is just such, like I said, such a huge time in their life, where you're going from basically being a boy to being a man. Like, by the time coming in a boy, leaving a man, and then said that the values that you learn, and you're gonna take with you the rest of your life. So, and I think sometimes you get so caught up in the just trying to win, you get away from that. Hey, these are still, still got to care about these guys as individuals. Still have to try to help them become the best versions of themselves, not just on the mat, but off the mat. And I think that's why what helps connect is when they know that you care about them as a person, not just a wrestler. Then they appreciate that, and they're can become more coachable. And a lot of times, the same things that are going to make them the best person they can be, those things are going to make them the best wrestler they can be as well. Just trying to get these guys to hold themselves to the highest standard and whatever they do. If you're gonna do it, we got guys who, and I was this way, like I was not a good distance runner. You don't see many guys that are distance runners being short, stocky. They're all kind of long and skinny. But I got this flat Japanese nose, so I was a mouth breather because I can't get enough air through my nose and out through my mouth. So I would, even when I ran cross country in high school, I threw up every single time I ran distance. So I hated running distance because I had throwing up too. So, but I eventually, because we had to do time through, I'm just like, screw it. I'm like, I'm just gonna try to time out my laps. I've tried to do all this, and it's like not working. So I'm like, I'm just gonna go. We had one guy that was a really good runner. I'm just gonna try to stay with him the whole time. And then when I start hitting that wall, I'm just gonna try to hang on and see what happens. And I'm gonna try to worry about the time. I'm just going all out. And if I'm gonna do it, then screw it. I'm just gonna challenge myself and see how how long I can stay with Zach Strunk. So I got in right behind him right off the start, and then he kind of tried to lose me and go faster. I tried to stay with him, and then I was like, all right, I know we're coming up on our first mile. I'll listen to what they say. Then all of a sudden I hear 505, 506. I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. And I ran by far my best PR 17:38 3 mile, which for like having to do 3 times as many strides as these long-legged guys, like, was pretty good. But it was like I just kind of decided that it was more of a mental thing for me, that I was just going to kind of not hold myself back and let it go. So we got guys who that like the weight room. Like, now the weight room was easier for me because I've always kind of been lifting for a long time. But for other guys, that's something that area where they struggle. So but it's human nature to want to hide from your weaknesses and want to just stick to your strengths. That's like your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And that's what I think was one of Jake's biggest things that helped him, is like he really dedicated himself to the weight room. Obviously, you look at AJ, he's really strong.
He lives in the weight room.
Yeah. Richie is a powerful 125 pounder. Like, strength is important. You look at those guys in the NCAA finals, you can't say like any of them are like weak. They're all strong. So even if you like, and then academics, like I definitely was more focused on wrestling, but it's just a mentality. Like, hey, if you're gonna go to class, then or if you already got to be in school, like, even if maybe you're never a 4.0 student, but if you're trying to be a 4.0 student, trying to get an A, then passing it's already going to take care of it, and you're going to put yourself in best position. It's like, don't try to set your goal to be a national qualifier, because then if you fall just short of that. But if you're really trying to be a national champion, really trying to be an All-American, then you're already doing the things you need to do to be a national qualifier. But just hold yourself to the highest standard, whatever you do. So then even if you fall a little short, you're going to, that's how you're going to be able to maximize your potential more. And like I said, just focus on that continued improvement and development. So I think those guys, you look at the really successful people, they don't say, I'm going to be, good in this area, I'm going to half-ass this in this area. They try to hold themselves to a high standard in whatever they're doing.
Well, I like what you said earlier about being process driven and developing relationships with the guys. And I feel like at some of these bigger programs, it's hard to be able to do that because it becomes more business like. And when you're thinking, what is basically the goal of the business, is to make money, or in wrestling, it's to win. When you kind of have that bottom line, it's hard to, I think, develop those personal connections with people, just because if they're not performing, it's like a job. You have to find somebody else, otherwise it's your job that you might lose. Do you feel like in this age of transfer portal and NIL, there's going to be some kids that maybe are turned off by that? And do you feel like in that sense, smaller schools kind of have an advantage?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, obviously, some of these schools that I think there are going to be and then there already kind of was guys who have the potential, have the ability, but the places aren't, um, their business model for their program. They have other guys if they're not having that immediate success. They're not willing to. They're looking for someone to come in and win now, so they're not willing to put the long term into working and developing those guys. So those guys will become available later on, and then that's why even while recruiting, like um, we know that those guys, these kids are trying to make the best decisions for what they feel like is best for them. So try to not burn those bridges, and that maybe you'll see him on the back end if it doesn't work out. But yeah, I think there's definitely potential there with some of these bigger schools that will have will get so kind of get so much talent on their team that they can't. It's hard for them to give everyone that time. And if guys, like you talked about, if it's straight business, it's like, all right, he isn't able to help us now, so why are we keeping him? We're going to bring in someone else that can do that. So there's those guys available. Um, Obviously, the other flip side of it is like if you do get guys and develop them, are you going to be able to keep them too? So it's a kind of double edged sword where the bigger schools obviously have more of the advantage. Is it's more of the NIL is more of a rich get richer type of thing, but there is and there's a good and bad to everything. But with the house settlement and bigger schools having to, and everyone having all these teams that opt in having to cut their rosters down to 30, maybe they have 40 or 45 guys. Now that that hoarding of talent is harder for them to do, and those guys have to find a new home, and we'll look for that. And maybe smaller schools have an opportunity to pick them up. The unfortunate thing is that's overall less opportunities. Like Division 1 is already very competitive, very hard uh, to to compete at the Division 1 level. And now, if you look at Cleveland State losing their program and all these teams having to cut their rosters to 30, there's probably going to be 150 less wrestlers at the Division 1 level next year. So now there's even less opportunities for guys to compete at this level. But that's why it's tough and so elite. And you look at even when times are tough, with another emphasis, and I know Penn State puts a big emphasis on this too, but talking about being just grateful, gratitude, being grateful for the opportunity, because that talk to a lot of alumni, they would love, especially I'm sure taking what now, like, and love to go back and take that knowledge to the old you and have and get those years back, and knowing that you could kind of maximize them even better with the knowledge you've got once you've coached and kind of see things from that different perspective. So like that's what we talk about, having gratitude and grit. That's approaching everything with being grateful for the opportunity, and then just kind of being gritty and battling and every time. So yeah, so it's tough. Division 1 wrestling is really tough, and but if you're able to get through it, and even during the struggles, like I said, I give more credit to the guys who, um, maybe didn't weren't always the starter, or just but still make it through, and still, and not just try to like um, and still like we're approaching every day with that gratitude and grit, and still giving their max effort. It's easy to give your max effort when you're right there on the cusp of being, trying to be a national champion or all American, but you're right there. But those guys who, those people that I know who, like, a lot of times are the most successful people, are those guys who weren't always the superstar, but they still came and they had the right attitude and gave their maximum effort every single day. And then they took that onto their business life, and they end up being really successful with that mentality. So it's a tough sport, but that's why the things you can learn from it can really help you with how you how you face adversity, how you face challenges. And like I said, we're just try to get everyone to prepare them and uh, learn those good lessons so that they can be successful. I tell guys, if you're a national champion for me, and then I talk to you in 5 years and you don't have a job, you're living in your parents' basement, then we messed up somewhere along the lines. I still failed you.
Well, there's no basements in California really, so I
Yeah,
think we'll be okay in that part. But like, yeah, parents' garage maybe, you know.
yeah, living yeah, in their garage or your old room. Yeah.
Well, Coach, we're getting close to the end here. I do have a couple questions before we sign off. When it comes to recruiting, you're able to get some big transfers this last year, and they helped a lot with the team. Is that something that moving forward, are you going to continue to try to kind of look for guys that can maybe come in from the portal and kind of make a splash and be able to compete right away?
Yeah, we're gonna always look for guys who we feel like are going to be a good fit. And obviously there's with having some success this last year with transfers, there's been I'd say a lot more like people reaching out to us and interest of guys going in, seeing that how we were able to help them and some of them wanting looking for that time invested into them as individuals. I think or maybe they feel like they haven't been getting that where they're at. No, wanting a coach that's going to work on make them the best person they can be, not just the best wrestler they can be. So we're kind of filtering through that, trying to find guys that are the right fit for that, and then we're all also always going to try to get in and develop guys. I think it's still going to always be one of our big bases is getting and maybe it takes 2-3 years to get them where they need to be, but like I said, a Richie or a Jake or those guys who are weren't maybe the blue chip recruits coming out of high school, but are just looking for an opportunity and are going to come in and put in the work and develop. So it's probably going to be continue to be a combination of those two. But yeah, we're just looking for the right type of guys that are going to buy in and be coachable and give their max effort and have the right attitude. And I think with those type of guys, if we continue to get where we want to get 30 of those type of guys, and it's going to be a fun team to coach and be around. I think you get those type of guys pushing each other, and they're all going to rise together. I felt like that's what we had at Central Michigan when I was there, where we went from being unranked to the number 2 ranked dual meet team in the country. It was a lot of just tough, scrappy guys who wanted to get in the room and get better and fight every day, and people didn't want to wrestle us because they knew that it was going to be really hard. It was going to be tough. So it was kind of fun being at school that not supposed to win. That you talk about that embracing that underdog kind of mentality and being the little team that beats these bigger teams. I think it's harder to do that in this time of the transfer portal and NIL for maybe like, I believe right now Cal State Bakersfield is still the only California team to win a Division One team trophy, and like Central Michigan has won a team trophy, and like you look at like Edinburgh took third one year. It's going to be a lot harder for schools like this to earn a team trophy, but not you just have to find a way um, to kind of work around the situation. But like I said, just like to focus on controllables, focus on what you can control, and um, put limitations on yourself, and to see what we can do.
Moving forward with competitions, is the next thing that's for you guys is U20, U23s for freestyle.
Yeah, we got U20s and US Open, and in a few weeks, and then U23s. I believe is the last weekend of May, and that's back in Ohio. So yeah, so just kind of doing some freestyle and we got a couple of guys that are looking at doing some Greco too. So I think it's good to just continue to when you're working towards a competition, it's a different mentality than just kind of training through for next year. So we're gonna have some guys will be competing, some guys are going to be getting a little healthier and focusing on some other things. Like so, we're going to continue to individualize as much as we can for what each individual needs.
Well, Coach, I really appreciate you coming on. Before we log off, do you have anything else you want to share or talk about?
No, that I think that's about everything. Not sure what when is this broadcast? When is this released?
I'm going to try to upload it and hopefully publish it tomorrow. So,
All right, because I was just say there's a
is there
fun.
some news that needs to be dropped or
Well,
what?
no, there's a fundraising challenge that ends at noon tomorrow. That just like $5 donors with all the other teams, and the winning team gets $2,500. But I mean, I guess even if there's not the challenge going on, people can still support the small team and help out Cal State Bakersfield. But obviously, we're trying to compete, so we're going to try to take out all these other Cal State teams and get the most unique individual donors. Not about how much, just how many different people you can get to do that. So maybe even just spreading the message on social media
Yeah.
out there will be good.
Yeah, if you have a flyer, I'll take it and I'll post it right now. But if I just want to make a donation, like I like seeing the double birds and I liked hearing the stories of Jake and Richie, how can I make those donations to CCB Wrestling?
So we will have those links on all of our social media handles at CSUB Wrestling. So that'll be the easiest right now. Or if you go to gorunners.com and go to our wrestling page, there's also a link there. So those are some of the easiest ways to do that. But no, we are, I guess that's one thing that should shout out is that we have amazing support from our alumni and some of our donors that without them, in 2010, there wouldn't be, after that, there wouldn't be a wrestling program right now. And now we're getting at a good time right now where we have amazing donor and alumni support, and we're getting support from the school, where this was the first time and since I've ever been here that we were able to go after recruits in the transfer portal and fly them in, where before it was strictly like, all California guys, unless these guys wanted to, uh, pay for their own way to come visit. So I think it's that them giving us that opportunity, um, appreciate them willing to kind of see that. And now that, like I said, we've had some success with doing that, I think that'll continue. But um, it's a good, I think a good time right now, and with Cal State Bakersfield wrestling, with before it was just kind of having to rely on that, but now getting some support from the school too. And now in this era of um, transfer portal NIL, it's even more important. We were already playing catch up before that. Now we're really trying to do that with these teams being able to kind of like I said, it's kind of these new rules. It's like rich get richer. So yeah, we're going to continue to focus on what we can control, maximize the resources. But for schools like us, it makes a lot bigger impact than maybe some of those bigger schools that um, are they're doing just fine.
Awesome. All right, Coach.